We are City of Five Nations podcast and our series 30 Days of Community Building. And in the City of Five Nations, one of our favorite sons, at least for me, Reverend Ron Horton, I call very lovingly. Ron was one of the best friends in our household as he grew up close to my brother, and also like a brother to my wife in the early years of growing up. And so I welcome today, with a lot of love, the Reverend Ron Horton.
Well, thank you, Dan. Thank you. It's nice to see you. And I see, we were pretty good friends too. So,
Well,
don't sell yourself short.
We always got along, and it was always with a lot of laughs. And one thing that Ron, today we would be amiss without talking about is something that I know has impacted both of us throughout our lives in different ways. But today, April 19th, a long time ago in our state, it was a day of really infamy. It was a day of a lot of death. And, to start things off on this April 19th in talking about how that can impact people, but yet how life can spring forth from it. I'd like to kind of take us there. When my sister died on my senior year of high school, it changed my life forever. That's really when I recognized there's a different reality between physical and spirit. And have you had experience like that of some sort in dealing with death?
Well, let me start off by saying this. It's interesting that you mentioned that. I was teaching at Southeast High School on April 19th, and I heard the explosion because it's an Oklahoma City public school. I remember the explosion. I remember looking out my window. I remember seeing the plume of smoke. I remember the words getting around, and I remember, Dan Hass, a fellow teacher, and I going down and seeing what we could do. It was really, we were right there during that horrific time, and it created a lasting effect on me. I myself have never gone to the memorial. I really don't want to. I had to process it. I mean, it was a time of grief. It really was. But the way I think I got through it was by feeling that that there was something greater than the here and now, and that you just have to have faith in a higher power, karma, whatever you want to call it. And I moved on, but I do stop every year and think about it. I do.
It's one of those things, that so many lives were impacted close to us that it's sometimes difficult to even talk about in the raw emotion moment. But with you and me, Ron, I thought that would be a way in which we could just start off out the cuff, because somebody else who passed away and years later, but had a story around that day, because I was watching on television the plume of smoke because I was, 30, 35 miles away. And I got a call that my mom was dying that day. And I had never been, I'd never felt that before because Mom was invincible. And she, of course, wasn't here or close. She was on the coast. And I had a decision to make of what to do as a young man with 4 kids, all in diapers pretty much.
I remember.
And it was an interesting time for all of us. And I know you had a special relationship, Ron, with my mom.
I did.
And you were one of those who were welcome in our house no matter where we were. Could you talk a little bit about that relationship that you had?
I first remember, her name, her name was Susie, but no one called her that. Everyone that I knew called her Nandu. I remember when your brother and I started hanging out, Jimmy, and the first time I ever saw Nandu was Jimmy went to mass, Catholic mass, and I went too, and there was Nandu, and she was just so open and so loving. Oh, well, come on in, come sit with us. Who are you? Not who are you, but whoever you are, come on in. She was just such a loving, kind, probably one of the kindest women I have ever met in my entire life. If it could be, she should be sainted. She's right up there with Mother Teresa. She really is. Never had an unkind word to say. I never heard a negative thing in her entire life come out of her mouth. She was just wonderfully Catholic and wonderfully Irish Catholic. I remember one time on St. Patrick's Day coming over to the house, and she was like, "Come on in, it's St. Patrick's Day. We're celebrating, and we're gonna drink some Irish whiskey, but you can't leave if you do." And that's what we did. We had a really great St. Patrick's Day. Just a wonderful woman, so giving, so kind. Just one of those people who you just couldn't help but love talking to. She was just the sweetest woman. Oh, I loved your mother.
Yeah.
Nandu was the greatest. She was.
Inextricably tied to this day. She recovered, of course, and lived for years longer. And really, it was a miraculous recovery. As we visit today on this Sunday and the 30 Days of Community Building series. Ron, how have you, since leaving the City of Five Nations, how have you spent your time over the last 20 or so years?
Well, let's see. I had a lost semester of college, and then, believe it or not, I went out to California and stayed with your mom and dad, and basically worked and surfed, while your mom and dad had a house right on the Pacific Ocean. It was so far out, there wasn't even electricity. We had to run a generator if we wanted to get any lights or power. That was always the way Pa Nandu rolled. It was always something nutty, but it was good. I took a couple of college courses at the junior college there, and yeah, it was just a wonderful time. And then I came back and went to Oklahoma Baptist University, and got a degree in communication and education, dual degrees. And then I started teaching special education. I taught down in Texas, just in a little town called Santa Fe, just outside of Houston, between Houston and Galveston. My wife was a pediatric resident at UTMB in Galveston, so I taught right outside the school district, or in a school district right outside of Galveston, and I taught SED kids, seriously emotionally disturbed kids, and that was a trip. That was, you were working with kids, not only that you were teaching, but you had to watch, because they could get a little nutty at times. I did that for 3 years. Then I taught at Southeast High School in Oklahoma City for 3 years, and then we moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, or actually we moved to Owasso, Oklahoma, which is a suburb of Tulsa, and we had 3 kids. We had 4 kids, 3 kids in diapers, and it was pretty obvious one of us needed to stay home. My wife was a pediatrician. I was a teacher, and I decided I'd stay home with the kids for a couple of years. Did that, kind of to raise them up, and then I I started teaching at Booker T. Washington High School in Tulsa, teaching math. I found everywhere I would go to teach special ed, I always ended up teaching math, and that because no one else wanted to teach math, and I would do it, and I found really a love for Algebra 1 and how to teach it, how to do it, and so I went back to night school and got my math credits I needed, and ended up teaching math, and that's what I do to this day. I've taught since '07 to today at Booker T. Washington. It's a great school, great school.
Well,
it's a
what a varied background. I mean, I love in the way in which you describe the journey from surfer to special ed teacher to, running down on a catastrophe in an urban area from Southeast High School in the teaching you had there to stay-at-home dad, all the way back to one of the top high schools in Oklahoma. And Ron, talk a little bit about that in the sense of your students at Booker T. Washington and what makes that place special.
Well, to give you a brief history of Booker T. Washington, in 1972, Tulsa Public Schools was still segregated. There were two black schools on the north side, and I guess if you counted Central High School, part of that too. But at the time it was completely segregated, and Tulsa Public Schools had the wherewithal to do something very interesting, and what that was they took their most popular, highest level white high school, took that principal who was white, and then took Booker T, who was just as high functioning, but on the black side of town, and they switched the two principals, and they made Booker T a magnet school, and they basically pulled out all the best teachers from the district they could and put them at Booker T, and they offered things like 6 different languages and upper level classes, and eventually the International Baccalaureate program. The idea was, we're going to make this a magnet school, and 60% come from the north side and 40% come from the south side. 60% being African American on the north side, and 40% at that time was the white population. It was a way where they didn't want to force segregation, but they wanted to provide a quality education so that any kid, no matter their culture, no matter their race, would want to go to Booker T. And you had to apply. It was a magnet school, and you had to have good grades, you had to have good attendance, and that goes to this day. It's just a wonderful school. It at this point has a microcosm of African American culture, Midtown white culture, mixes in with, now we have a lot of Hispanic culture, and it's just a wonderful school because there's so many things going on. People intermix and talk and get together, and it's just a magical place. That's what I call it. And we have some of the best students in the state, and not only that, we also have an excellent set of athletes too.
Yes.
Booker T does pretty well.
Yes, you do, Ron. And that's a great example of what we're talking about, in the sense of everybody coming together and getting to know each other better, cultures, getting to know each other better, because that makes all of us better. It makes all of us closer. It makes all of us stronger. And I remember that day that I came looking for Mr. Horton. in the hallways of Booker T. Washington. I was up on a sporting event with one of my kids, and after the event, I came. It was after school, and the place was deserted, but I heard noise somewhere. So I started to walk the hallways towards the noise. And then soon I come around this corner, and there are a lot of corners at Booker T. Washington, let me tell you. I come around this corner, and there's like a crowd outside this classroom. And as I get closer, I hear a voice that I have heard many times before. And I come in and I kind of
preaching the gospel, brother. Preaching the gospel.
That's right. Peering over the parents who are at the doorway, and I look at this full classroom, people standing around the sides, and you are simply doing what you do every day after school, which is help kids who need help with math.
Yeah.
I was so, Ron, impressed with that within your heart. The empathy that you have for people is a gift, and it's special. What is it? What is it? Just second. What is it that you like or love the most about what you do with those kids, those families, at your job? What is it that motivates Ron Horton?
It's about bringing cats up. That's what I say. You got to bring cats up. You know, I take kids from varying backgrounds, and because I teach Algebra 1, I get a lot of strugglers because those are the kids who've been basically held to the lowest level in math, and some of them are great. Some of them come in and they have no confidence. They don't like math, and what I do is I bring up my cats. I preach the gospel. I'm probably a little different than your average math teacher. I have lots of little hooks and things. I don't know if you remember when you were in school, but you know the typical math teacher would basically go up, explain for 12 minutes, then go sit at their desk and grade papers. And if you had a question, you had to raise your hand and go up and see them. It's kind of I had when I was in high school. But I don't do that. I'm always moving around the classroom, you know, working problems, working with kids. I think part of it is that I taught special ed. I understand the struggle. Another part of it is I like to preach the gospel of math. I do, and the more converts I can get, the better. You know, and I just love, you know, I love getting up there and working and doing the math and just the joy that you get when kids are like, man, I get this, and I get kids from all over Tulsa, but because we're a magnet school, I get kids from middle schools who they did the math. I get kids from middle schools where the teacher and maybe even the sub, they're just trying to babysit and maintain order. And if you learn, great. And what I do is I try to turn all those cats into math machines but do it with love and with flair. And I guess I'm okay at it. You know, I have a lot of cats that come back and say, hey, this was good. You were great. Thank you. So I've been doing it for a few years.
And you work with the youngest. I mean, you work basically with the ninth graders and probably some 10th graders.
Right.
So what are they?
Geometry. So
what do they call Mr. Horton? Because you've always been a nickname guy. What do they call Mr. Horton?
Well, first turn that around. I make a nickname for quite a few students.
Okay.
Let's see. But they.
Are you going to share a couple of those?
Okay, well, let's see. I've got a kid named Lucky. He's my lucky math charm. I've had a kid named Scrackums. I got a kid I nicknamed Fishbait. Fishbait. Boy, he was a nutty cat.
Do you remember the nickname you gave me?
No, I don't. I don't. Tell me, what was it?
No, I'm not going to tell you. I never liked it. I'm not going to tell you, man.
Well, my students usually like their nicknames. I
I
don't try
know.
to give them nicknames they wouldn't want.
But mine was a reissue. You already had somebody called that, and then you reissued it to me, and I didn't like that.
Oh man.
So
hey, well,
there'll be a new one.
Oh, over the years, I've probably reissued one or two. Like I get a red every year. Hey, red, I got a red this year. Yeah. But
so what's your nickname? Is it Red?
No. It's just Horton. Although I tell them that my freshmen, I say, well, you can't call me Horton instead of Mr. Horton, because everyone else is like, I'm Mr. this, Mr. that.
Right.
You can't call me Horton until you pass my Algebra 1 class, and then after that, it's all good. It's all good. They walk by, hey Horton, how you doing? What's up? They also call me Gosh Almighty.
Oh, really?
I've been known to say Gosh Almighty. And let's see, couple of them call me Mr. Sandbags, because I have a saying: "Don't be sandbagging me now. Don't be sandbagging me," meaning don't be copying. Don't be doing someone else's work. Do your own. But,
I got you. Well, Rod, or Horton, that is so funny because we've always just called you Horton, which is great.
I know. That's my whole life. In fact, I introduced myself. Someone, hey, I'm Fred Jones. I'm like, yeah, I'm Horton. I'm Ron Horton, but everybody calls me Horton. So
that's right.
That's the way it is.
Well, and I love that because that's a good stage name too. And another thing that I love about you is when we pass the time, and if you're in the room, you usually have a guitar or something by you. And you are a songwriter. In fact, I came in on a story of you and a friend, and he was making some tacos, and it just happened to be a Sunday, right? Was it Jesus making tacos or something like that?
Well, it wasn't on a Sunday. Actually, it was your brother. It was your brother, Jimmy Shaughnessy. We were texting the other day, this week, and he sent me a text, and I said, "Hey, what's going on?" We were texting, and I said, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm in quarantine. I can't go anywhere, but it's okay because I'm making tacos, and I got Jesus." And I just looked at that text, and I thought, man, there's a song in there. So I proceeded to start writing a song. Yeah.
I like
the song is, I got Jesus and tacos, and brother, I'm good. That was the gist of how it went. So
hey,
I'm still working on it.
Okay, but can we debut it on the City of Five Nations? I mean, can we debut it?
Well, I don't have my guitar with me. I don't have my guitar.
No, not today. No, not today. Just when it's perfected. When it's perfected.
Oh, absolutely. When it's perfected. But is any song ever perfected? It's just
not yours,
at the point where it's acceptable.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the lovely Teresa, because I mean, one of the best aspects of Ron Horton is Teresa Hendrickson Horton.
Mm-hmm.
Met back in college, and you've had many journeys together. Tell us about Teresa, your lovely wife.
Well, I never will forget. I after my lost semester of college and the surfing, I did a little bartending in Dallas, and then I came back to go back to school. And so I was sophomore age, but I remember walking through the walking by old WMU. I don't even know if they call it WMU, but that was the women's freshman dorm. And I remember seeing this gal who just looked so different. I mean, she looked European. And she had this short, cool haircut. She was wearing bright colors. And a lot of the gals back in the day had the claw. I don't know if you remember the girls, but they had the claw. She did not have the claw. She did not have the claw. She had this kind of funky, cool haircut that was just totally different. I said, dang, who is that girl, man? She's gorgeous. I fell in love with her the first time I ever saw her. And we went out a couple times, but I was just a little too crazy for her. And she was a gal with her mindset. She was going to medical school. And so after a few dates, she was like, yeah, well, okay, but yeah, maybe later. But we worked together on various groups at the college, and eventually I asked her out again the next year, and we started going out, and pretty much that was 35 years ago. She's a wonderful gal. She's smart. She's just has this spirit that wants to take care of folks. She's a great pediatrician. She's just a wonderful, wonderful lady. Man, if I needed a pediatrician for my kids, I'd use her. But yeah, and she's just so easygoing and but smart at the same time. She's just a wonderful person. And throughout the years, we've gone from here. We lived in Beijing for 3 years, and it's just, she's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they called her to the hospital at 11:30 last night to help on a delivery, and she didn't get back till 5 o'clock. So she's a hardworking cat. She is the James Brown of pediatrics. Man, she is like the hardest working pediatrician in pediatrician business. Yeah.
I believe that, Ron. And the reason that I bring that up is because you and she are such an example of two who, back in college, it was almost like two totally different people, yet the magnetism was so right that it just came together, and you guys have been right ever since. It's like two becoming one in such a great example. And I've always admired that about you and about your family. And also, she gave me one of the greatest gifts ever, and that was, I think I was still in college, and she gave me Gorp. And anybody who can come up with Gorp and give it to me in a Coca-Cola bottle, I ate that Gorp for like a month. It was awesome.
Well, yes, Gorp is one of her specialties. But at the same time, I probably could have given you like my horrible worst kind of sandwich, and you would have eaten it because you were a food eating kind of cat. Are you still a food eating kind of cat?
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah. I'll tell you what.
I am. In fact,
well,
when I get off this, okay, go ahead. When I get off this podcast, in fact, I think I might be making some, chicken fried pork chops. How about that, brother?
Gosh almighty. Well, Teresa made African fire stew last night. So, man, I'm burning on the inside, let me tell you. Yeah,
did it have some of that baked corn on it? Baked corn on the cob that you chop off?
No, it did not have that. No, but it had sweet potatoes. It had sweet potatoes in it. That was her thing. But
that's pretty good.
Yeah. But I remember that you were the guy who every now and then we could just tell it's time to feed the beast. It's time to feed Dan. So we would make sure you got your food and everything was A-okay, brother. A-okay.
That's right, my man. You know it. Well, Ron, it's always wonderful to talk to you, and I appreciate you taking time out of your Sunday. I know that's a special day for you. And I look forward to talking to you more, man. Thank you for being with us today.
Okay. Well, my mother has moved away from Shawnee, so I don't have a reason to come back anymore. But you know what? That's not true, because you're the reason to come back for me now, you and Danielle. So I love coming back to Shawnee. It's my old stomping ground. Kickapoo, is it still the place to be?
It's still there, brother. That's right. And you know there's a lot of love for you here. A lot of love for you here. So we'll talk to you later. And keep up your social distancing with your class.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm Zooming. That's for sure. All right. Good to talk to you, Dan Shaughnessy. Be good.
See you later, man.
Cool.
That's the Reverend Ron Horton with us today. And what a gift that is, anytime that I can sit down and talk with Ron. And we really appreciate you as our audience. And we're trying to bring to you different people from the City of Five Nations, because we believe within communities there are so many people assets that if we just continue to reach out and connect, that we are going to build a stronger network, not just individually, but for all of us to be able to learn more about the people who live within our 10-mile radius. We believe that that is the answer that the entire world needs, is to focus again right around where we spend 85% of our time, in the love of the people who surround us. As always, here in the City of Five Nations, we want to remind you, together we are building community one season at a time. Happy Sunday to everybody. We'll see you later.